Many of the service people returning to civilian life are having a difficult time readjusting to civilian life. And our guest today is Shannon Kissinger, and Shannon is with an organization called Swords to Plowshares, in which service people learn how to readjust to civilian life again. So Shannon, thank you so much for being on the show.
And thank you, Mel, for having me.
Tell us a little bit about Swords to Plowshares.
Well, we're a veterans nonprofit. We're located in San Francisco, California. We've been around since 1974. And we were originally started by Vietnam veterans and some psychiatrists from the VA, the Fort Miley office, actually. And our whole model, or what we really try to do, is to treat the continuum of care. So we treat everything, the mental health side of it, excuse me, the housing side, employment training, legal, and housing, and mental health. Yeah.
Yeah. What motivated you to get involved in this organization?
Well, I've been working with veterans since I got out of the service, actually. When I was in school, I was utilizing the Montgomery GI Bill. And there's a special program with that. It's called VA Work Study. And you work with veteran-specific organizations or personnel, like the Employment Development Department has a veterans representative at each office, or you work at a National Guard armory. Well, I worked originally with the Employment Development Department with the vet reps, and then when I got to Humboldt State University, where I finally got my degree, I worked with an organization called Veterans Upward Bound, and what that was, it was just a re-education program where they could get their veterans can get their skills back up to par. And there I started out the front office, then I worked up to teaching assistants, and finally teaching classes in the instructor's absence.
Right. Tell us what it's like to work with veterans these days, or service people.
What is it like? Well, it's interesting. It's very interesting. Some of them are really great guys. Well, they're all really great men and women, I should say. Some of them are a little bit better off than others. It's really like a cross-section of society, to be perfectly honest. You have people who are black, white, gay, straight, rich, poor, you know. Most of them, when they come into our office, unfortunately, most of them have some sort of mental health issue or substance abuse issue. 99 to 100% of them are unemployed. I mean, why else would you come to our office looking for work if you already have a job, you know?
Why do they have mental health issues?
The military is a very interesting experience. I served 5 years in the Navy, and I know I was changed quite drastically from how I was when I joined. With the vets that are serving now, most of them are combat vets, so that means they're seeing action. They're probably getting shot at. They're shooting people. They're seeing buddies killed. They're seeing dead bodies. That really changes an individual, and so that's kind of how they're changed a lot.
So you're dealing with people with post-traumatic stress disorder,
Yes.
and traumatic brain injury,
Yes.
I think. What is the percentage of returning vets with those disorders?
That's a hard question to ask, actually.
Hard to ask. It was easy to ask.
Well, I should say hard to answer. The reason it's hard to answer is because the military doesn't always test for post-traumatic stress or traumatic brain injury when the service member exits the military, and the VA doesn't always. They don't always test for it either.
Right. You know, I heard that if someone has a post-traumatic stress disorder, that the military will actually try to downgrade that to a pre-existing personality disorder. And if that is done, well, maybe the post-traumatic stress disorder causes certain behaviors that are so negative that they might be discharged for that. So I think from what I've heard, many of these people, if they have post-traumatic stress disorder or traumatic brain injury, they're given less than honorable discharges. Is that true?
At times, yes. At other times, no. It really depends on the command, who the commanding officer is, who the executive officer is, what kind of environment his command is. To begin with, I mean, if the soldier, the Marine, sailor, airman, whatever, is considered a good, squared away individual, you know, he doesn't have much problems, goes to combat, comes back, and starts exhibiting problems. They try to work with you to some degree. Other commanders and other commands and other units don't really want to deal with it at all, so drum them out as quick as they can. A lot of times, if a soldier has a TBI, traumatic brain injury, or PTSD, it's real common for them to use, smoke a little grass, maybe drink too much, so they could kind of just escape those demons that they got running around inside their head, which in turn leads to other problems. It's the military practice is zero tolerance, so if you fail a urinalysis exam, you're going to get drummed out.
Right. Why do people join the military?
A variety of reasons.
Well, the people you see, what is your impression about why they join to begin with?
A lot of them come from depressed economies. Local areas that, Fresno, Modesto, Humboldt County, Mendocino, where there isn't really much in the way of work up there, and you got to do something, especially if you have kids or,
So in a way, they're driven to an opportunity that presents itself.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Tell us what the training is like to become a soldier, basic training. What does that, how does that training change you?
Gosh, that's a...
Well, one, it breaks down your resistance. It causes you to...
well, that's not necessarily true, though.
Oh, okay.
I mean, at least in my experience, it wasn't necessarily true. I know a lot of people who are very strong-minded and very hard-headed. I mean, like myself, I was like that too. But I realized that if you play the game, do what they say, they never bother you. It's almost like the movie Forrest Gump, where he's in basic training and the drill instructor asks him, what are you doing here? And Forrest Gump's like, to do what I do what you tell me to do. And that's exactly what it is. I do exactly what you tell me to do. It does instill a sense of discipline, though, and direction.
Right. So if someone is trying to readjust to civilian life and they're homeless and maybe they have substance problems, how do you help them?
Well, if they have substance abuse problems, we actually have transitional housing. It's an inpatient substance abuse and mental health and co-occurring disorder program. So it's a 2-year maximum stay. It's individualized counseling treatment and, case management. And so a veteran would come in who has a substance abuse problem. Let's say he's, smoking crystal, which is, doing methamphetamines, which is real common amongst these younger, the OIF, Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom. Methamphetamine use is very common. So let's say he's doing crank or something to that effect. He'll come in. They'll generally do 3 to 6 months where they can't work, can't go to school. Their whole mission in life is to get clean and sober, and then start addressing those mental health issues. So let's say they have anxiety. Let's say they have, PTSD, depression, whatever. Once they get clean and sober, they start addressing that. Once that's addressed, then they move on and start going to work, going to school, whatever is fit for them to do at the time.
Do many of these people feel that the Veterans Administration takes, how can I put it, satisfies all their needs?
Well, the VA can't. For the simple reason there's the varying degrees of discharges. So you have your honorable discharge, your general, your other than honorable bad conduct, and your dishonorable discharge. Well, your bad conduct and your dishonorable, you can't get any help from the VA. Your other than honorable, you have to get an other than honorable, you have to go through a court martial. There's 2 different types of court martial, your special and your general. If you have a special court martial, then the VA determines whether or not you're eligible for VA services. So you got a 50-50 chance. Now, general and honorable, or general and honorable, you are eligible for VA services. Now, with that in mind, not every vet needs medical or psychiatric or substance abuse help. Some vets just need a job, plain and simple. Some vets need help navigating the system of schools to get enrolled, start classes, go to class even, and utilize their GI Bill. Well, the VA isn't set up for those. The VA is set up for mental health, substance abuse, and medical problems.
Right.
Yeah.
I've interviewed a few veterans who have post-traumatic stress disorder or traumatic brain injury, and they seem, pretty much like everybody else. I mean, what is the problem here? And it's only later that I hear that they've snapped and they've become completely changed. I don't necessarily see them after that's happened, but it's difficult for me to wrap my mind around this and bring it home about what they're going through. So what can you tell us about PTSD and traumatic brain injury that would make what they're experiencing more clear?
There's the San Francisco Police Department, for their training, they train their officers in how you deal with a person with a severe mental health issue like schizophrenia, multiple personality disorder. And the way that they do this training is they'll take an officer, they'll sit him in the middle of the room, and they'll put a bag over his head, like a regular paper bag, something that they can't see out of. And then another person plays the officer doing the stop. So, you get out your, turn off the vehicle, let me see your ID, driver's license, whatever. Well, to simulate the whole idea of schizophrenia, they have two individuals sitting beside that cop who's in the chair with the bag over his head, and they're both talking to him in each ear. One guy's saying one thing, one guy's saying the other. Talk to the cop, deal with the cop. Don't talk to the cop. He wants to kill you. He wants to harm you. Oh, he's a great guy. And this is going on the whole time. Well, that's kind of similar to PTSD, traumatic brain injury. It's a very confused state in that sense. Now, on the other side of that, with PTSD, you're trained to do some very intense operations. Okay, I mean you're trained to fight war and to win war. Okay, in order to do that, you have to do some very intense acts. And when you're talking about a conflict such as Iraq, where there is no front lines, there is no rest area you go to. They're getting attacked, mortar attack, car bombs, RPGs, gunfire, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 12 months, 15 months, 16 months, sometimes even more than that. And then repeatedly, the way that you act in the civilian world isn't going to change that much from the way that you act in Iraq, where you have hypervigilance. So you're on guard all the time. You go into a restaurant, you have to have your back against the wall so you can see who's coming in and out of the doors. Right. You're on the road driving and you're speeding because in your mind, consciously, you're back in the States. You're home and you're safe. Unconsciously, your body and your mind's still acting like you're in Iraq. So you're driving fast, driving down the middle of the road, burning through stoplights, swerving underneath bridges because you don't want some guy throwing a grenade on your truck. Yeah. You're worried about that piece of trash on the side of the road, an IED. You don't really know what's going on. So that's kind of, I guess, how I would kind of equate it for someone who never served to kind of understand where these guys are coming from. Now, I mean, please don't get me wrong. Not every vet's like this.
Sure.
There are varying degrees of it at the same time also.
Yeah, you're a pretty empathetic guy, I've noticed. So how has it been for you to work with these people? How has it changed you?
It's been really hard at times. Sometimes I feel like a teacher, a counselor, a brother, a parent, all kind of roll into one. I've had men and women come into my office looking for help, and what we do at Swords is we open the door for them, the door of opportunity. But it's the veteran's responsibility to actually walk through that door of responsibility. So that's where it can be difficult at times for me, because I open this door for them and say, listen, man, this is what you got. You can use your GI Bill, go to school, relax for a while, just kind of come down off of Iraq. But they don't always want to do that. They want to get a job, or they're smoking meth, or they're drinking too much, and it's just like, yeah, I know what you're doing. I totally understand where you're coming from. But you can't operate like that in life. You're not going to be a successful member of society, If anything, you'll be like those homeless people on the street, who are strung out and drunk all the time, and begging for change.
Now, for veterans listening to this show, people who've been in the service and they can relate to what you're talking about and may feel they need help, or if someone knows someone who needs help, how do they get in contact with you, Swords to Plowshares?
Well, we have a website, www.swords-to-plowshares.org, or they can just Google it, Swords to Plowshares. Or they can look for the Iraq Veteran Project online. And now, I know it says Iraq Veteran Project, that's what we're called. We actually serve any GWAT vet. Now, GWAT vet's Global War on Terrorism Veteran. So that's anybody
Global War on Terrorism Veteran.
Yes.
GWAT.
Yes.
Okay.
It's anybody that served after September 11th, 2001. So, yeah, either Google Iraq Veteran Project or Swords to Plowshares, and we're generally the first ones that pop right up.
Can you cite an example of someone who has really been helped by this, who's made a radical change? that you've come in contact with?
Well, due to HIPAA, no, I can't really. I can't give you any sort of specifics.
No, not names, but give us an idea.
Well, we had a Navy vet that had a really bad problem with cocaine and alcohol. And he rolled into our offices. He was homeless, actually. And he rolled into our offices, and we got him placed in the transitional housing. Well, actually, we got him placed first in emergency housing, so we got him off the street. Had him in there for about a week. Then we got him in the transitional housing facility. He addressed his alcohol issues and his cocaine issues and substance abuse. Started to address his mental health issues. And then after that, we found him a job. Actually, while he was going through school, and he worked part-time, and then once the 2 years were up at the transitional housing, we got him placed in an apartment and a full-time position. I mean, it's not great, but you know, it was pretty good from where he was at.
Right. Are there other organizations out there that also are designed to help service people?
There are. There's we are very fortunate to be in California. There are about there's about four other organizations in this state alone to service veterans. Swords to Plowshares, though, is the only one that will see someone with a dishonorable discharge or bad conduct discharge. All the rest of them, you have to have at least a general or honorable discharge to be seen by them. Now, all the organizations essentially operate on the same sort of spectrum. Another difference between our organizations is theirs is that our legal department will do discharge review and upgrades. So let's say a vet will come in with an other than honorable bad conduct. There is a possibility that he could remediate that and get a better and go back to the military, advocate at the military or the Department of Veterans Affairs to get a better discharge type so he can become re-eligible for services.
I imagine service people must feel pretty isolated at times.
They do.
Talk to us a bit about that.
Yeah,
alienated.
My readjustment was pretty miserable at first. I mean, honestly, you know.
Do you feel talking about misery?
Well, I mean, it's such a common part of my job.
Right.
I shouldn't say it wasn't. The first 2 months I was out was probably the best time of my life. You know, I was out of the Navy after 5 years. I was single. I had $5,000 in my pocket, no debt, and I had a car that worked.
And you hadn't been involved directly in combat.
Exactly. Yeah. But I really felt free. You know, and I'm starting to notice that's pretty common amongst combat vets also.
The feeling of freedom?
Yeah, because you get institutionalized when you're in the service. It's almost like a prisoner who gets out of jail, you know, after you serve for quite a few years, you know, especially in active duty. But once that sort of honeymoon wore off, the realization of having to find a job or go to school, having the realization of pay bills, you know, a lot of bills, having to pay my own rent, do my own groceries, and then not really having the social support network that was there when I was in the service around me. So it was very difficult after that little honeymoon of freedom, you know.
Yeah. Did you find that living in the city was difficult? I know that Nadia McCaffrey is starting something she calls Veterans Villages, in which veterans are taken out of the regular social milieu and put into nature. She feels, in fact, many vets I've talked to feel that it's very helpful just to get out of anything, an environment that is man-made, and to be in nature, that is very helpful, that it reconnects them with what's natural and original in themselves.
Yes, it does. It does help quite a lot. So most of my friends are veterans, combat and non-combat. That's pretty much who I surround myself with. And it's been like that since I was in the military. And we're pretty avid backpackers and campers, hikers, you know. I mean, some of us like fishing, some of us even like hunting. And I know for myself it helps immensely to be out in the woods, you know, where it's quiet. You don't have the constant drive of cars and this throng of people everywhere around you.
Now that you're in the position of helping people who have been in the service, what's your reaction when you see advertisements on television, on the radio, trying to entice people to join up? How do you react to that?
Actually, I kind of laugh. I
Why?
do. Just because I served, you know, and I've already kind of gone through that, and I saw a lot of what these young men and women will see. I didn't see all of it. Thank God I didn't see all of it, but I did see quite a lot of it. I would never put that down for anybody. It was one of the best decisions I ever made in my life to join the military, and I can guarantee a lot of my coworkers is the exact same way. You know, had we not joined, our lives would have been totally, entirely different, and probably not for the better, I would imagine.
Yeah.
You know, so, but I want people to be realistic about it, though. Also, you know, I'm not really one to volunteer my own opinion, especially with people I don't know. So if someone asks me, you know, I'll gladly tell them the truth. You know, you go in the Army Marine Corps, man, you're probably going to see combat. You'll probably be in Iraq. Probably more than likely you go to Afghanistan, at least now.
Right.
You know, so you're going to be put in that position where you might have to pull that trigger and take someone's life. You know, now I know there's no way that you can really process that or conceptualize it or compartmentalize it now, but just at least have that realization in your head that it may happen.
Yeah. Sometimes when I see the ads on TV for joining the Marines, you know, I actually feel a burst of patriotism, and I feel almost like a samurai. And I can imagine myself actually going for that, and then I have to pull away. Wait a minute. You know, I just, advertising can be hypnotic, so I have to kind of pull myself away from that and really try to imagine what it is that that lies underneath this.
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, it's true in the sense when you put that uniform on, you really feel pretty good about yourself. You know, you really feel like the big boy on the block. So it's a truth in that sense, but it's not really the truth in other senses, though.
Right.
You know?
What else would you like us to know about the work you do and the people that you serve?
They're not all crazy, messed up vets. Actually, very few of them really are. And they have a very good skill set that not many people do have, at least for their age group.
Yeah. Tell us what that is.
Well, they can, critical thinking skills. I know for a fact they can work under pressure and very extreme pressure.
Sure.
You know, they're used to adverse environments, and they're dedicated to what they do. Once you set them down with a objective or a mission or a goal, they will reach it 9 times out of 10.
So they have had training that has allowed them to learn discipline and follow through with the project.
Yep.
Now between us here, the camera focused on this. You want to explain to us what this is?
Those the top 2 are my dog tags from when I was in the United States Navy, and the third one is my father's. And the ring is actually a grenade ring that's attached to a grenade pin, and that was the first first live grenade that I threw. Yeah.
And what are that? How many seconds do you have between the time you pull it to the time it detonates?
I think the training manual says about 6 to 8 seconds. Honestly, though, you really don't know, because I mean, you're holding this baseball-sized grenade in your hand, and you know,
is it heavy?
Yeah, it's got some weight to it.
Yeah.
And you know it's a live grenade. You pull the pin and you're standing there with it, and you want to get it away from you as quick as you can.
Yeah. How far away from it do you have to be after it detonates?
Well, the way I did it, we were in emplacement, so it's almost like a cement box with a sheet steel roof on it.
Throw it over or around?
Well,
or
you have a little vision slit, so you throw it and then you duck down as quick as you can.
What did that feel like the first time?
It was really cool.
I think we talked about this before, and you said it was a blast.
It was a blast. It definitely was a blast. Yeah.
Okay. We have just about a minute or 2 left, but maybe you could cite, without being too specific, examples of people who've come to see you, who you've been able to help or guide in the right direction.
Well, we had a Army combat engineer that came in, he came in a few months ago, and he was homeless in San Francisco, living in Golden Gate Park. Didn't really have a substance use problem, but he did have mental health, i.e. PTSD issues. And we got him placed in our transitional housing, and currently he is in a really well-known and very good motorcycle maintenance course. It's about a year long, and he's got an immediate job placement afterwards.
Right.
And with Ducati, I think they're called, that motorcycle.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
That's one of them. Let me think here. Another fellow Same issue. He wasn't combat engineer. He was Army infantry, Afghanistan, and you know, he didn't really have much of a substance abuse issue either. His was mental health, PTSD, and he graduated a little while ago from our transitional housing and is currently employed and going to school.
Right. Now you're about to transition out of working for Swords to Plowshares. You're
Yes.
going to be getting a master's degree in MSW?
Yes, Master of Social Work.
Yeah. I'm curious, what do you plan on doing with that?
I'm going to go either United States Navy, active duty, Department of Defense, or Department of Veterans Affairs. I really
So you're going to work, you're not going to join up again, you're going to just work for them?
Potentially, yes.
You may
Potentially,
rejoin the service?
I might, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a commission to, I think it's 02, 03, right off the bat. Plus with my previous 5 years on active duty, really helps me out in that department. And this is a population that I really care about. You know, my battalion that I was with, when I was in the Navy, I was a CB. It's essentially the Navy's version of a combat engineer. And my battalion has gone to Iraq and Afghanistan numerous times, and I've had a few friends of mine injured pretty badly, and one buddy pass on.
Yeah.
So.
Right. Well, Shannon, I'd like to thank you for being on the show and sharing your experiences, and hopefully veterans watching the show right now, service people who are watching the show, or someone who knows the service people who could use the services of Swords to Plowshares. I encourage you to check on up the website, and that is?
www.swords-2-plowshares.org.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's flashed on the screen, so people will actually be able to see it. So Shannon, thank you so much for being here. I think you're doing good work, helping a lot of people, and I wish you all the best of luck in the future.
Thank you for having me here, Mel.
Continuing to help the people that you care about.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Yes, thank you too.
Okay.